And we were observing revolution from the upper floors.
Yes.
And lovely time. And really, George Cahin was director of the project. And he liked to, you know his book, Nationalism and Revolution in Indonesia, right? And he liked to tell us how his passport, US passport, was invalidated after he came back from Indonesia. He came in Jakarta, the capital of revolutionary republic, in summer of 1948. And he was put in the same government guest house where Suripno arrived. And he was put next door on the same hall, on the same floor. And Suripno, as you know, certainly, was just coming with Musa from Prague.
Yes.
And according to all the literature afterwards, it's a blueprint for communist revolution in Indonesia. And Cahin got friendly with Suripno. They were young men. Suripno was a dancer. Cahin was very much interested in Mexican archaeology, so they talk about other things until Suripno disappeared, and then appeared in Madiun, as you know, and then he was hunted through the mountains and executed. After Cahin came back, he was doing his dissertation into book, and he wanted to go back to Indonesia to check for some facts, as he usually do. And he was told that his passport was being invalidated. And he came to Washington, it was 1952, like I was listening to radio at the same time, and asking what's going on. And he came to the cantor, and from the office, what he told us, Mrs. Shipley came out, the head of the passport department, and she told him, Mr. Cahin, the line between communists and non-communists is very clear, and you are on the wrong side of the line. So he was checked, and his friend, very good friend, was assigned to check if his lectures and some students, if he is not communist really. They decided not. He was not hanged, right? It was not Prague, 1952, and he started a huge project. He was a great patriot. He was, if I say American patriot, you know, I am like going under the table rather. but he was American patriot, which really had some deep value. And he imagined Indonesia like that. He was not philatelist, but he had stamp collection. You probably know that stamps, it's 4 or 5 of them. It was published just when 48, I think, in Yogyakarta. There was a Sukarno for 1 rupiah, and there was such a small vignette, this George Washington. There was a Hatta with Abraham Lincoln for 47 cents. I still remember that. He was very proud, of his collection. And there was Haji Agus Salim, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and elder man of Indonesia. And he was there with Ben Franklin. And there was for 3.5 cents, and it's very touching. 3.5 cents for Shahrir with Thomas Jefferson. And this was Cahin's idea of Indonesia. And Shahrir, typically for Cahin, for 3.5 cents, was his favorite. And when I wrote my Shahrir, I dedicated it to Cahin. So this was Cahin. His best student was, somebody said, old and late, right? Ben Anderson. he was assistant professor at the time. He was 6 years older than me. And he was writing his thesis into a book, Java in a Time of Revolution. And also, few months before, 2 years before, he wrote a corner paper with Ruth McVeigh, which was, in a way, a defense of PKI, saying it was not PKI, it was the army business. It was a provocation. So he was saying something like I did in the 50s, was saying about money. It was not communist revolution, it was provocation. You know, they were trapped, these people. And his favorite was Tanmak. Alfred Kehin, the victory of revolution came in 1949. By 1950, when Indonesia was recognized by international community and then unified. It's the end of the book on unified Indonesia. For Ben, who was much more radical, or maybe less listened to, because he wrote it in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Revolution failed at the moment when Tan Malaka was executed. So it was that kind of gloomy thing, but not completely, because Anderson's thesis was called Pemuda Revolution. And he was, like Kehin, like Shahrir, because he was socialist and democrat. Ben, like Tan Malaka, because Tan Malaka was socialist, actually communist, and full of elan, full of spirit, full of semanga. And so he was killed, the revolution failed, but not forever, because there is that eternal youth. So that was the optimism of Anderson. You know, he wrote it in the late 1960s, and there was that movement in London and Paris and a little bit in Indonesia, different kind of youth movement. So it was Ben Anderson, and it was my stay at Cornell. I wrote Tan Malaka at that moment. I did it for seminar of Siegel and Anderson and published it in the journal. And I wrote it for Ben. So this is my personal involvement, but it goes deeper and less certain. It goes beyond it. Undoubtedly love with these people. You know, they took somebody who could not speak English basically, and who was just, you know, giving to resignation and becoming either scum or salt of the earth. Nothing desirable in either positions. But it's going deeper, or maybe a little bit astray of the love, because you know, it's troubling me. It's troubled me then, and it's troubling me actually increasingly. So I would give you, I call it apology. It's like Socratic thing, you know. He was defending himself in front of the court, and he knew he will be convicted, and he knew he will be dealt with. You know, Greeks were poisoning Greeks, right? So the apology has 3 parts. One part is the world is in misery, and the misery is increasing. I was yesterday in Katwijk. You know, I always have to go to Katwijk first time in Leiden. And I said, what are you talking about? World in misery, you know, this bourgeois and working class, you know, very, very developed, very nice people. But I think world is in misery because the exploitation is still there, the capitalism is I'm speaking like Musa now. And moreover, the misery is increasing, and it's absolute. We don't have to just to think about climate change or about imperialist wars. You know, I thought it's my time already. You know, the imperialist wars like Philippines and Vietnam and Iraq, Ukraine, right? And the hunger, which is growing. There are statistics every day, forgotten every day. And I remember my barber in Saripan Pacific. I was paid by American Council of Learned Societies. So I stayed in Saripan Pacific, and the barber was telling me if he would not have a daughter at the outskirts of Jakarta, and if he cannot stand this 8 hours and cut the jerks like me, he will die of hunger. And so that is in misery and increasing. And second part of the apology is that change is needed, great change. Like Bertolt Brecht said in one of his communist elegies, great changes are needed. The little changes are enemies of great changes.
Yeah.
And so it's coming to what, you know, we have like Hegelians and Marxians or whatever, like qualitative leap, you know, and we have that Lenin, the revolutionary moment, like yesterday was too early, tomorrow is too late. Now, this beautiful carpe diem movement, and you jump into unknown. The crucial thing about that is, and this is the third part of the apology, that violence should not be excluded. We should not say, okay, there is the Mrs. Shipley line, right? Here is the elan and eternal youth. This is the line that sometimes had to be stopped and blood maybe running. So this is the apology, and the for me core of the poodle is that it never happened. That revolutionary moment which would lead to, as Brecht said, to great goals, never happened. But, and it's crucial, it sometimes almost happened. That possibility that it happened is disturbing. It created fear for someone and hope for the others. It was, you know, it shook the world, but it did not change the world. 1789, right, in France, 1917 in Russia, and so on. In Indonesia, it's a special place. Good food and a juicy history, you know, because it happened 3 times. And it happened like in a romantic symphony. You know, in romantic symphony, the sun is setting down 3 times, and the orchestra is getting, you know, wild. And in Indonesia, it was 3 times too. This increasing intensity and horror it was said, and you know that textbook kind of thing, 1926, 27, which is important that it's always crushed, but always some specter is coming out of that. You know, it's not youth, it's some specter, it's some fear in equal amount, some fear and some hope. 1926, 27, you know, horrible crushing, but Takashi is calling Digur phantom bird of Digur. And he can say phantom colony because of Digur. And then you have, if people remember something or know something, they know Pacar Merah, right? Somebody who is running away, nobody will catch him. He appears there and there, you know. So it's a spectre, it's a ghost. And then you have Musa, who was another leader of 26, 27. Tell them I am drinking. Musso, you know, he disappeared, right? And nobody knows what happened to him. Maybe he was radio announcer in Moscow. Maybe he was in Spain. It is possible. He said he was fighting at Madrid. And maybe he was in Java with City Larang. Tan Malaka says, and Haripuse says, no, he was not. But he could be. He was there, I think, as a ghost. And then came, you know, they were crushed, and there was spectre. And the more they were crushed, the more there was a spectre. This is my point. Then came 1948. You know, they were killed. Amir Sharifuddin and Musso and Suripno and all of them were killed. But they were strange stories in Dutch papers in Indonesia and in Indonesian papers. Fear and hope again. There were strange plane landing in Bangkok and near Singapore. And perhaps Musso came out and Suripno was in the papers. There were rumors. And the rumors, as you know, about Indonesia is the most powerful thing. It's even more powerful than Suharto. And about Musso, it's a wonderful story. You know, it's all here, of course, in The Hague. It's like a Balinese funeral. He was killed several times. His corpse was being getting rid of. He was killed. Then Siti Larang actually was invited to identify him. And she said, yes, he has that sign here, and I don't know where. Then he was burned, and ashes were thrown into Brantas River. And then body in full was taken to Jakarta, where still Sukarno, it was before second action, military action, aggression, police action, was still in the palace, and they were invited to the hospital to identify the body intact of Musso. And Sukarno says, yes, Aymin was taken from prison, and he was like thinking, and he said, yes, so taken back to prison. But then they said it actually was not Musso, because Musso had that furry hands, you know. So I'm not talking if it was Musso or no. I'm saying it was Musso's ghost. Mm-hmm. And then came 1965, the horror beyond talking, right? There were too many there. Jim Siegel went to East Java with a Polish photographer to ask people in the houses where people were murdered. And he always heard the same thing. They did not come home yet. They are around, you know? So they were waiting, right? And then you have these people who somehow escape, like children of the big four, like Tatjana Lukman. She lives near Utrecht here. And or Sumarsono, who was very important to Madiu, or Francesca Fangetai, who was very close to Amir. There were rumors, and they escape, and they are around. They actually do sometimes. They right. Time is running fast. I am one of the last ones, right? And they are doing concerts. I think, without offending my audience, right? I think these are webinars before webinars. It's a ghastly thing, you know. Sumarsono appears on the screen and so on. They were running through Peking and Prague, many of them. One was my teacher of Indonesian in late 1960s. and Berlin and Amsterdam. But maybe this is the spectre. This is my problem. This is my basic problem. Maybe this is how Marx predicted it in his Communist Manifesto. Spectre is haunting Europe. I mean, spectre is haunting Europe. But sorry to say, they all look like Samuel's father. So, how far am I? What? Oh yes, if you can, next one. This is one of the most horrifying pictures in Indonesia. It's about the blood. This is the blood of a communist. He was killed upstairs. But this is not horrifying for me. The horrifying are the faces.
Yeah.
You know, this is what is hard to bear. Actually, it's from 1948, from East Java, after Madiun. You are not surprised that there are ghosts coming from that, because I hope, I'm not sure that these people, these boys are having nightmares. But it's my senile optimism. Yes, I have something. After I planned that after the daring personal introduction, I will pass to deeply theoretical and descriptive 4 hours expose of communism and spectre and liberalism. Liberalism, which to me is basically the same thing. History of communism, especially at present, but since 19th century, is equals history of liberalism and neoliberalism, victory and spectre. So I planned to do the expose, and I made some notes, which, however, I threw away because I was tempted by billboard on the Rijksmuseum, which was saying "Revolusi, Indonesia, nothing." And so I heard that there was a problem with Persia, that it was deemed to be racist term and making savages of Indonesia, and that violence and blood is just used as a weapon to denigrate revolution, and that even police was called in. So of course I could not be absent there. So I went on Saturday. I went to Amsterdam. There was really the big billboard. It's even, maybe for the first time I thought since 1883, and there was the big colonial exhibition just there at that place.
Yes.
You came to that Rijksmuseum, and there was the new, everybody wrote about the passage. Mm-hmm. And today Romanians are playing Vivaldi, right? and you went through the passage, and people said, now we are in completely different. They were, as Marikano West, they were Javanese villages, like people there exhibited. There was Javanese art, and I'm sure people are eating lumpia and you know. So there was no billboard when I came, so I went through the passage. I had to buy ticket anyway in museum shop. You have to go through several lines. And there was at the back of the museum, little bit discreet, but it was there, Revolution, Indonesia, on Abhängigkeit. And so I went in and I felt very ironic because Revolution to me is like, and Westerners say, Papak or Ibu or Saya Malu. Why it is in Indonesia when it's in Amsterdam, it's a little bit both condescending and colonialism is over, right? So I went with quite, I was jet lagged and there was irony in me, and I was very moved in the first room. There was some film that was discovered, I don't know, recently, I have never seen it, with Sumarso. And they filmed the Ikeda meeting, you know, in September when Sukarno was giving that speech saying just because Japanese soldiers were around, go home, because he was afraid of massacres, go home. And there was photographs from Declaration of Independence, from the place where I interviewed Harkini Sukarno. Actually, she was getting that room behind the sculptures of Sukarno and Hatta reading the. But there were really pictures. There was the soldiers and Sukarno and Hatta and Suwiryo in Japanese uniform, and the masses of people. Really, I was surprised how many people there was. I expected there were just few people in the proclamation. And like this, not the fact, not the Sukarno speaking and Hatta speaking, but the faces were, for me, really striking. That, how to say, that hope that you cannot, these people, I don't know what they think, but there was a hope. It was like Lenin's revolutionary moment. Yesterday it was too early, tomorrow is too late, now. And they had that eyes, it was just incredible. And these people were going to, they lost me, right? Good for them. Okay, I will go on, it's the best part. I saw their eyes, and it was like people willing at that moment and the order to jump into unknown, you know, like Immanuel Kant said, that sense of every philosophy is just to go with a boat on the sea when you cannot see the other shore. So they were going to jump in that revolutionary moment. However, the order was not given. It's not said, even in the first room, that Sukarno actually was forced into declaring proclamation by young people, but not eternal youth, but many of them members of Amir Sharifuddin, who was still in prison, member of Gerindo, Pivor Gerindo, like Aide, Rikana, Nyoto. These people were pushing Sukarno, who was hesitating because he was scared to death by Japanese, by established order, the Indonesian, by Dutch. So he had to say it. And nothing is in the first room about that. He did not give order to go on. So I had mixed feeling about the first room, but the feeling grew as I was passing, because they solved the problem of Persia and police and doing the town in an architecture way. They put everything in a special room. So there is a special room of Bersia, which is like if you will come to museum 20 years, 30 years ago, they were the killed European civilians. There are the books like Baby Yaren in the Indies. There is a very action movie of British Marines going in Surabaya in a very exotic forest and looking for somebody, probably Indonesians, right? And so the exhibition makes, and then there is the Hank Gantung paintings from Lingajati conference. And there is Amir Sharifuddin missing. And I'm sure, because I have the book, I got it in Indonesia. I'm sure there is Amir. It may be by accident. And there is the final room, and actually in the official announcement for the exhibition, they write it open. What was the climax of the revolution? It was the court when Sukarno was coming in 1949 back to the country. I don't know from what country to what country he is coming. He was coming back to the country, to Yogyakarta, and he was welcomed as Sukmawati. There is an interview with her. Is saying with millions. They still have that eyes, that people, because in between there was the stupid Dutch. It's not you, right? Stupid Dutch attack, because Van Mock was saying the same. Van Mock was saying, Tom Werk has it in his biography, the stupid Dutch, they did not wait, they did not negotiate. They would like to destroy these savages. And so the nation, of course, stand up behind Sukarno and everything. So this is like the climax. It's a little bit when you go, you can manage it, because if you're passing through one room to another, but as you are passing, you feel more and more lonely, inhibiting empty space, because there is not what mention of Mas Marco, the greatest novelist Indonesia ever had, much better than Pram. Yes, I waited for them.
Tunggu dulu.
10 minutes
And 4 more photos.
You just go on this next photo. Yes, it's a Bersiap, Bersiap is that crazy Sutomo. Crazy Sutomo, Allahu Akbar, it's good. He was a great leader of revolution, of course. So can you put another one? Maybe it will be less provocative. Oh, it's most provocative. As I was walking through the complete exhibition, it was like when I was first in Indonesia, they wanted me to massage parlor, and they took, but it's massage complete. So the exhibition was complete. There was nothing to throw there, nothing to add to it. It was compact. It was in iron cage. So I gave, probably I was drunk, and I gave it there. It's Lubang Buaya, right? You know what to say. And there is written Lubang Buaya, but there is much bigger saying dilarang turun lempar siapa-apa. It's like they could put it on the exhibition. It's forbidden to throw anything else there. It's forbidden to throw Mas Marco or to throw Musso. He was a teacher of Sukarno. He was a friend of founders of Sarekat Islam. He was teacher of Sukarno. So was there something before revolution, right? Is there any provocative picture? Yeah. So I will finish on that. And there was the final room, which is the beautiful Cartier-Bresson photographs from the revolution. And he is making like the final moment of the revolution. Victory, everybody is excited. And there are famous pictures how they are bringing the portrait of governor generals from the absolutely beautiful paintings. But he came to Indonesia in September 1949, and he left early 1950, which means all the possible heroes were dead. Amir and Musa and Suripno, and the rest was scattered all over the world. I'm not saying they did not deserve to be beaten, but Indonesian history lost. You know, there is an interview with one of these indoors. I think it's the one his father wrote Baby Yaren in the Indies. And he has the beautiful metaphor, like my one leg was in the West, he speaks in Dutch, but my other leg was much deeper, much longer in Indonesia. So I am, how you say it, in like, walking uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I have better metaphor. I have metaphor of Indonesian revolution, like a bird that wants to fly, and one wing is missing. It is left wing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this picture I will end on there. I actually have not seen it on television, but it's in catalog. I gave 27 euros for that. So I will ask for money for that. and it's Sujoyono. It's a famous Indonesian painter, and it's just what he said about it. But he was protege of Amir Sharifuddin, and he was very strong activist of Gerindo. And he was, if not a member, very close to Communist Party. He painted this picture when he moved to Madiun, because Madiun becoming the 1947 center of the revolution. And the painters were there, and Yogyakarta, he moved there. And he painted that these are heroic faces. They are all painters, but they are heroic faces. Now, do you still have some? And it's a revolution correction. Do you have it? Yes, it's a revolution correction, No. Bapat is entering, and he is the heroic face. He is the face. And this is the correction. It also could be on billboard, on Rijksmuseum, on the front. I will put it there. But I'm not saying this because you can see it. Recently, I made a friend in Indonesia. His name was Tejo. Tejo. And he was a son of Sujoyono.
Oh, yeah.
And he took me to his office in Utan Kayu, and Gunawan introduced me to him, and he showed me this painting. And Tejo's father, Sujoyono, was very left-wing, but he survived. He made, it's like not Grigoriev, but he wanted to paint, so he said, I'm not a communist. His mother, Tejo's mother,
Mia Bustam.
Mia Bustam, thank you, was a communist, and she was She was in a camp after 65. Tejo himself was in 14 years in Puru. He died last year. If this keynote would be worth something, I will dedicate it to his memory. On his grave, because on his grave, he left a verse of Henriette Roland Hall's written, and it's the same verse that is on grave of Ali Arkham in Bovendigul. Ali Arkham was there. So, how many minutes? I would like to be on like like Dutch train. But, so just to end it, this is texture. This is texture. This is what he showed. And I would like to end by most beautiful metaphor I can show, right? It's not a ghost, it's a baby. So,
Wow. You want to say that? Well, thank you so much, Professor Mrazek. This is, my head is full of, food, there's a lot of things, food for thoughts, but also I feel so much mixed feelings of listening. It feels so magical in the past 1 hour. I feel like that, especially after 2 years of being in a pandemic, to be in this one